You. What's up, everybody? Rage Cage. 20 here. Ooh, I gotta scoot this way. How's it going? We're here at another Mr. B story. Now, before we get into this, before y'all hit that skip button, I know how you be. I feel you. Just as a warning, because it warned me. So those of you who ain't here for it, and probably potentially ain't here to hear my point of view, if you've watched a few of these, you know it's not usually it could be triggering for that alone, could be triggering for other people. So it warned me right out the gate. YouTube straight up warned me, not even Mr. B. YouTube warned me straight up the gate and maybe say that I understand to continue that this may contain suicidal or self-harm material. So if you're not here for that, and if you're not here for me to potentially joke about certain things, then you've been warned. You can click off. This is apparently a 3-part story here. The only reason I know that is because the 2 seconds that started playing, Mr. B said something like the last story. I was like, what do you mean the last story in this? So I think the last one's where we get to the crazy shit. But yeah, then I scrolled through the thing and was waiting for anything to be like number 1, number 2, number 3, and when I was like, oh, okay, here we go. So apparently the last one's gonna be crazy. So if you ain't here for it, that's okay. Click off now. I won't take it offensively at all. Just note that I always try to be respectful, even though my opinions are not very popular. I always try to be respectful in these situations because I know I've dealt with a lot of people who've gone through this kind of stuff. So we're probably going to get deep in this video. If you're here for that one, let's continue. Mr. B, give it to me. Show me what you got. Let's get this thing going. Drop it like it's hot.
Today's final story deals with a destructive, horrible, vile act that virtually anyone can do. However, there are no laws against it. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in stories...
Oh yeah. Did I say that what we have today is the most insane man on TV? I don't know if I mentioned that. I don't know which one's the most insane man. I don't think it's number 3 because that had something to do with like a daughter return or something like that. It might be number 1. Who knows? But yeah. And it's not that crazy pastor dude who's insane that a couple of people done videos on. At least it didn't look like it, so.
format, then you come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once or twice every week. So if that's of interest to you, please ask the like button to be the back half of your 2-person horse costume for Halloween, and then when they accept, spend the night before drinking Miller Lite and eating falafel. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so
I mean, first off, Miller Lite doesn't sound good. First off, I don't drink alcohol, but I can imagine Miller Lite probably tastes like shit. I don't know, is that... I know Core... I think people don't like Coors. I think Coors, people say it tastes like piss water. Maybe Miller Lite's good. I don't know. I don't drink alcohol. I think it all tastes shit to me, so... that. But falafel is fucking delicious. But I assumed he was going down a path of like have a bunch of stuff that's going to give you like horrid uncontrollable gas and whatnot. I was thinking like beans and stuff like that, but apparently beer and falafel will do it to you. I never heard that combo, but all right.
you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories.
Let's do what you got for me.
In 2007, 60-year-old Michael Dick was living in Bow, East London with his wife and 2 daughters. While his life was not exactly exciting, it was good. He lived in a quiet and safe neighborhood, and Michael, who used to be a carpenter, was now semi-retired and got to spend the bulk of his time with his friends and family. But that year, something really started to bother him. 10 years prior, Michael had split up with his first wife, and after their divorce was finalized, his ex-wife and the daughter they had together, her name was Lisa and she was 21 at the time, Those two stayed in the family home in Sudbury, England, and Michael moved south about an hour and a half to Bow, East London. The divorce had been quite messy, and so Michael had not only lost touch with his ex-wife, he had also lost touch with Lisa. And so fast forward 10 years back to 2007, and Michael and Lisa had not spoken since the divorce, and Michael found himself suddenly feeling this unbelievable wave of grief over the loss of his relationship with his first child. And so after speaking with his current wife and his two other daughters, he decided that he had to go find Lisa. He had to be reunited with her. The only problem was he didn't know where Lisa lived, he didn't have her contact information, and he didn't know where his ex-wife was, so he couldn't even ask her how to get in touch with Lisa. However, he did have the street address of where they used to live in Sudbury, England, and so he decided that would be his starting point. So in August of that year, Michael and his two other younger daughters, they hopped in the car and they left Bow, East London, and they headed up to Sudbury. And when they got there, Michael navigated.
Yeah, from my time in England, I don't think it was anywhere near Sudbury. But absolutely beautiful landscapes. The buildings are very gorgeous, and it's very fascinating because it's very different from the way I'm used to things. But like, every house is like pretty much attached to each other, like very close to your neighbors and whatnot. I thought it was a very fascinating view, the way they, the way the houses were and whatnot.
To his old street, which had brick houses lining each side of the road, and he drove down until he spotted his old house, and he parked right out front, and then he alone hopped out of the car and he walked up to the front door. He took a deep breath, and then he knocked on the door. When the door opened, it was not Lisa, it was not his ex-wife, it was some other family that he didn't know, and they didn't know Lisa or his ex-wife, and so they said, good luck finding your daughter, but we don't have any information for you. And so Michael was crushed, but he thanked them, and he turned around, and he went back to the car, and he told his other daughters about what he had just learned. And then from there, the trio just kind of began driving around Sudbury, half looking for Lisa out on the streets, although none of them thought they would actually find her.
All right, I'll take you. I can't tell. I feel like my line's all sorts of crazy one up. I got because I don't think you can go to like a police station or anything. I don't think they would give you any information on that, just in case you're pretending. Like you're a person who's pretending like, oh yeah, I just want to get in contact with my daughter again, but actually like you're like there's like a restraining order. So I mean they would have public information of that if it was a restraining order. Maybe, I don't know. Would they? No idea. I don't know how that information works. Never had or made a restraining order on anyone. Never had one against me, so I want to know how that works. But yeah, I don't know. Because the police, I don't think, can give you that information just because you're trying to find and abduct. You know what I mean? So I don't think they can give you that information. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's 2000 something. Not a lot of people are online at that moment. 2007, I think you said. Like, I think that was Facebook around in 2007. I think at least MySpace was, right? But I don't know. Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people were jumping on it then. It's not like nowadays we can maybe find them online or whatnot. So, going to the original House of Origin and trying to see if there's any information. Logical. But just driving around like maybe we'll see them. That's a bit of a stretch.
And then also kind of discussing what they were going to do next, because now they had nothing. And so as they're driving around the streets of Sudbury, they come to the realization that their best bet at finding Lisa is putting some sort of story in the local newspaper that hopefully she would see, and then she would contact Michael. And so they drove to the headquarters of the local paper, the Suffolk Free Press, and they went inside and they managed to speak to a reporter. And after telling the reporter Michael's story about how he's lost touch with Lisa, the reporter thought, you know what, this is actually a pretty interesting story, and I'd be happy to do a small feature on you guys. And so the reporter, along with a photographer, brought Michael and his two daughters outside. They took a picture of them, and then they told Michael, in the next edition of the paper that will run in a couple of days, we'll run this picture along with a little write-up about how you're looking for Lisa, and we'll put your contact information in there, and hopefully she sees it and she reaches out to you, and you can be reunited and live happily.
It's if they're still living within the same location. I mean, if they moved from that house originally, there's a good chance they moved to a different city, different. They're not called states, obviously. Country. Yeah, they could no longer be in England, or they can be in the other fucking side of England. You never know. Like, so it's a long shot, but since the story's on here, it has to go somewhere. So I would think maybe it worked. Yeah.
Ever after. And so Michael thanked the reporter and the photographer, and then he and his other two daughters hopped in the car and headed back to Bow, East London. In 2007, at the same time that Michael was beginning his search for Lisa, Lisa was actually beginning to think, you know what, I want to go find my dad. Lisa was now 31 years old. She had 3 kids of her own.
Hold on, let's go the timeout here. Hold a tick. So it's been 10 years. So they got the what? What? I'm missing some information here. I feel like I'm missing some information here. All right, didn't catch something. It's been 10 years, so she was 21. How would they not still have contact information? I thought she was like under her mother's care, but 21, you don't have to be living with your parents. So I thought she was at least 18 or younger. You know what I mean? There's got to be some math I missed somewhere, because that doesn't make any sense, first off. But second off, you waited to 31 before you were like, maybe I'm going to go check my dad. You know what I mean? That didn't happen anywhere in your 20s. Just, all right. Sure.
She was married. She had moved out of Sudbury to a neighboring town.
Right.
And she was thinking, you know, I really want to have a relationship with my dad again so that my kids can have a relationship with him.
Yeah,
and so she began speaking with her mother and with friends about how she should go about finding her dad, because like Michael, she didn't have his contact information. She didn't have a phone number. She didn't know anyone who would. And then when she went on social media to look for him, he wasn't on there. And so she was kind of at a loss. Then one day in August, she was at her office and she was in the break room and she saw a copy of the Suffolk Free Press sitting out on the coffee table. So
what are the odds?
And she began flipping through the pages, and then suddenly she stopped when she saw a picture of herself. She saw her and her mother walking along the streets of Sudbury. She had been in Sudbury just a couple of days ago to talk to her mom about finding her dad and kind of
who took a picture of her? What? Why?
Strategies for how to go about doing that. And then Lisa glanced at the caption for this photo and she nearly fell off of her chair. The man and the 2 girls who were the main focus of this photo that Lisa was in were her father and her 2 stepsisters.
You know, there's jokes about the British and how they maintain their teeth and their teeth not looking great and stuff. Like, you know, the stereotypes, obviously, but the rest of him just looks god awful. Like, he looks like a villain. Like, he looks like he butchers people for fun and they're under the crawl space. You know what I mean? Like, hey, they're there. How the fuck are they? Wait, they were in the... What? Wait a tick. This is the picture that the dude took of him, and they were in that picture. They were there at the spot when he took that picture of them for the press. Wait. That's funny, first off. But but back to the subject we were on before I had that realization. Doesn't this dude look straight out of like a villain straight out of a movie? That's all I'm saying, man. Like, someone should be checking him, or just time was not good to him. I'll just say that.
She just didn't recognize them. She just saw herself in the back of this photo. So purely by chance, after being apart for over a decade, on the only day that Lisa happened to be in Sudbury talking to her mom about finding her father, she was literally 100 feet behind her father and her stepsisters as they were looking for her and putting out this ad in the paper to hopefully find her. And this one photo that the photographer took captured all of them in the same frame. Lisa would, of course, read the article and get her father's contact information. She would reach out, and initially Michael actually thought it was a scam. scam and didn't
Right.
believe this was actually Lisa calling to say, I found myself in the picture of you in Sudbury. But eventually he was convinced and he drove right out to Sudbury and he got a chance to meet his grandkids for the first time. And today he and Lisa are still in touch.
That Heath
Before we get
Doe,
into our next story, I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp.
which, from what I've been clued into, that's actually a fantastic sponsor to have for this video.
That is betterhelp.com/Mr. Ballen to get 10% off your first month. Okay, let's get back to the stories.
Graphic content. Oh no.
If I told you to picture the Amazon rainforest in your head, you would likely picture a dense tropical wilderness full of amazing and exotic animals.
Sure.
And you'd be right, that is a good representation of the Amazon rainforest. But what a lot of people don't know is that the Amazon rainforest is also home to a massive city. It's called Manaus, and it sits right in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, right along the Amazon River. And it happens to be one of the most violent places in the entire world. All it takes in Manaus is simply walking down the wrong street or crossing the wrong person, and you can get shot or stabbed in broad daylight, and there's virtually nothing anyone can do to stop it. In 1989, a 31-year-old former police officer named Wallace Souza decided to make a TV show about what it was actually like to live in his hometown of Manaus. And unlike other crime shows in Brazil that often censored out the most graphic content they covered, Wallace decided he wasn't going to do that. He wanted to expose the harsh...
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that. I'm very against censorship in general. I don't think shit should be censored, man. At all. So I mean, like, if you want to show people the cruel reality, don't censor it. Force them to see it. You know, it's logical.
reality of life in Manaus, and he felt like the only way to do that was to show everything. And so that year he launched this show, which he called Canal Livre, which translates roughly to...
So this is the most insane man on TV. So I don't know what's going on with story one. It sounds like you're going crazy, but Canal Livre, from like Life on the Canal Life or something. What was it?
To free channel.
Oh, free channel, Canal. Like, got it. It's been a long time since I've been singing in Portuguese, so a little rusty on my Portuguese, not gonna lie to you.
And true to form, there was no filter on what went on the air. And so this show was shocking. Viewers were given a front row seat to freshly murdered victims that are lying out in the road and slumped over chairs in restaurants and behind steering wheels. And the cameraman would zoom in on their fatal injuries, and they would zoom in on the faces of these people that have just died. Every gratuitous detail, every blood spatter, every grieving family member of the victim who's crying out in pain, all of it was shown on this TV show.
So, I mean, there's a difference between censorship and, being respectful, I guess I would say. Like, showing the atrocities that are happening mixed to, like, zooming in on the dead person, body, the lethal parts of the dead body, the victims and stuff. There's a little bit of difference between those two things, you know what I mean?
And then in between these very dark and violent segments about gang killings and drug deals gone wrong, Canal Livre also had a much lighter side. They would bring on local artists to talk about what they're working on, to maybe try to sell some of their goods. The show would also focus on down-on-their-luck families that needed help raising some money, and so the show was designed to get people to donate. And then also, for really no reason at all, there was a segment on the show where this puppet character would get into a fight with a man selling bread. It was a totally bizarre and shocking spectacle, and the people of Manaus loved it.
But that bread man did not like that puppet.
And then eventually, the people of Brazil loved it. I mean, this was an extremely popular show. Because Wallace was often on camera on Canal Livre, he became very famous and very recognizable. And so when he would walk around Manaus, people would see him and literally just start clapping and cheering for him. And as he and his show became more and more popular across South America, Wallace decided he didn't just want to report on crime, he wanted to fight crime. So, on air,
Okay, well, I was starting to think like, well, maybe he won't get killed because everyone's like, oh, well, this guy's really popular. But that also could put a target on his head. The criminals be like, oh, fuck that, I'm gonna kill you. I don't know. But then to go to, you know what? I'm getting all this recognition. I'm gonna fight crime. I feel like it literally means literally. I'm gonna go fist fight some motherfuckers that kill people. But I don't know. I mean, that sounds insane. So that sounds like what might go down here. But like, I'm pretty excited to see where this is going to go.
Wallace began berating the government for not being able to protect its citizens, and he berated the police for not being able to catch the criminals.
He ain't wrong.
Off the air, Wallace campaigned for and was elected to political office in Manaus, where he continued to push hard to reduce crime in the city. And so it wasn't long before Wallace went from just being a relatively well-known TV host to being one of the most beloved and influential and trustworthy people in all of Brazil.
Okay. So here's where I'm seeing this going here. So far, it's like, besides maybe a little bit of disrespectfulness to maybe the families that just lost someone, or, to the victims that died or whatnot. Like, like not the coolest thing, but nothing like crazy yet. Like, nothing like super crazy yet, besides maybe the puppet. But what I'm seeing here is a person that is rising higher and higher and higher into power, into fame, into, notoriety. And power tends to corrupt. So what might start here as like he ain't wrong to call out the government and the police. Like that Nigerian death factory, the police just don't do shit. Like, unfortunately, in some places that are more run down, more third world, more, anything goes. Like this, to where you could just kill someone and walk away and ain't no one gonna even care. Because it just happens every day and no one's even gonna look for you. You know what I'm saying? Like in these places, police don't care, man. And the government's just like, whatever. It's what you guys do to each other, so fuck you. So, he ain't wrong to call him out. So far, nothing crazy. But I have a feeling, because I feel like he just said however or but or something, I feel like it's about to go downhill. Also, I love that his last name is Souza. Right now it's making me think of the Sousa phone. Anyways.
However, over the years, there was one strange thing about his show, Canal Livre, that people just couldn't wrap their heads around. This oddity was most obvious in a now famous episode of Canal Livre that aired sometime in the mid-2000s. This episode opens with a Canal Livre reporter making their way through a jungle, and there's a cameraman filming them from behind. And this reporter, they're very carefully walking through, kind of pushing branches out of the way and high-stepping over all the underbrush. And then at some point, up ahead, you see there is a clearing, and there is a third person standing in this clearing, and they're clearly looking straight down at something on the ground that we can't see. But this third person is very occupied with whatever is on the ground. And so eventually, this reporter makes their way through the jungle into this clearing, and then as soon as the cameraman gets into the clearing as well, he looks down at what is on the ground. And what you see is what appears to be a log that has previously been lit on fire because it's still smoking and it's black and it's charred. But as the cameraman zooms in, you see there are hands on this log. So you realize it's not a log, it's a human being who's obviously deceased. And based on how badly charred they are and how much they're still smoking, you realize very quickly that this person must have been on fire very recently, as recently as probably just a couple of minutes ago. Like right before the camera got here, this person was on fire. And so as you're kind of seeing this shocking image, the reporter suddenly talks about this person like he knows all the details of them already. He says, this person, it's a man, and they were not shot to death. They were doused with gasoline and burned alive. But at this point, the police had not come out. They had not seen this dead person yet. And so it made no sense that the reporter would have all this information on hand, because No one knows this stuff yet, and based on just looking at this person's body, it was too badly burned to be able to tell whether it was a man or whether they had been shot or not, or whether gasoline was used. But when Wallace was questioned about where he and his reporters got their information from, he just said, look, we're a very popular show and people call us often before they call the police, and they give us information about what's happening in the city.
I mean, that's fair. Like that is, I mean, if it's a lie and or excuse, it's a good one. Like that, because like they know the police don't do anything, so it's just like, well, we know this is what happened to this person because I'm sure a lot of people witnessed these crimes happening. And so they probably just like yeah, that's what happened. I don't know, someone crossed someone, they doused them gasoline and lit them on fire. You should come out here. I find that very believable. However, if he's having people commit these crimes for him so that they can go out and put them on TV, that would be what we would consider insane. So that's my guess of where this is going. Like something like that.
And we have a huge team. We watch the police headquarters, we listen to the police's radio, we watch the morgue, we have loads of informants all over the city, and so we just get our information.
Like, I mean, he expected this question to come. He's got it all fucking stacked of really good reasons of why they would know this information. Like, this is all very logical.
Really, really quickly. And this answer was enough until 2008. That year, in October, the police arrested a former Manaus police officer who just went by the name Moa, and they accused him of 9 murders. And so they throw him in jail.
Right,
but
sure.
Moa, despite the seriousness of the charges against him, seems totally unfazed. It was obvious he had some sort of powerful connection outside of prison, some person or some entity that he fully expected was going to, at any moment, swoop in and magically get him out of prison. But that didn't happen. Moa just continued to sit in jail, and at some point that began to sink in that he was kind of on his own, and so he began to talk.
Again, having someone commit these murders and whatnot. And so he's thinking like, oh, okay, I did it for this very famous person. He's going to come bust me out. And then when he realizes, oh no, I'm being thrown under the bus and I'm the scapegoat. Well, I'm going to turn him in now. I'm sure he's got to have a good response for that. Oh, he's lying. We never hired this person.
And the story he would tell would shock Brazil. Moa would admit to having killed some people, but he would tell police, look, I'm just the assassin. The person who hired me for these killings is Wallace Souza. It would turn out Wallace Souza started his show, Canal Livre, with the best of intentions. Yep. But when his show became massively popular and it in turn made him, Wallace, also massively popular and powerful, he became corrupt. And at some point, after his meteoric rise, he formed this very powerful drug cartel, and then in an effort to bolster his illegal dealings and to boost his show's ratings, he decided to start contracting hitmen like Moa to start taking out rival gang members in Manaus. And he would tell the hitman how he wanted them killed and where he wanted them killed and at what time. And then after the hitman agreed to do this, he, Wallace, would go tell his camera crews exactly where to go and at what time so that they would be arriving at the murder scene literally right as it was happening or right afterwards, allowing them the opportunity to get all the gory footage before anybody else. It would take the police a year to finally compile enough evidence to charge Wallace with murder, but they would do it in October of 2009, and eventually Wallace would turn himself in. However, he denied everything. And then before he went to trial, he would die of a heart attack in prison. And so we never actually got to learn the full extent of what exactly Wallace Souza had done, how many people he had assassinated, and how many of them were shown on his TV show. But we do know that at least 3 of his assassination victims were shown on his TV show, one of them being the person that was found out in the jungle. They really were a man. They really had not been shot. They had been burned alive with gasoline at Wallace's discretion. But in the end, the person who paid the highest price for the Canal Livre killings was Moa, the hitman who blew the whistle on what was going on with the show. On New Year's Day in 2017, a crime syndicate overran the prison where Moa was being held. Now, they had lots of targets of people they were going there to kill, and one of them was Moa. They were furious with him that he spoke to police and gave up information about the drug trade in Brazil. And so,
I mean, yeah, you snitched against your gang, man. Like, you going down for that.
so eventually, this angry mob of gangsters made their way over to Moa's cell, and when they found him, he was pressed up against the back of his cell wall, basically as far away from the bars as he possibly could be, and he began pleading for his life, and this horde was not having it. They were only there to kill him. And so they all have machetes and knives, and they're looking at him through the bars, and they say, you know, we're going to come in there, we're going to cut you to pieces. And so then they start banging on the door, they're trying to hack the lock open, and
None of them have guns.
and Moa, he can't do anything. All he can do is kind of just keep himself all the way to the back of the cell and hope they don't get in. And eventually, they can't open the door, and they know it. And so they do the next best thing. They reach through the bars with a lighter, and they light Moa's mattress on fire. So Moa was trapped. He had nowhere to go, and so eventually the fire reached him, and he burned alive.
Wow, this one's 18 minutes. Damn. Number one, a big one. Okay, number one, a big one. I mean, I don't know if I'd say it's the most insane. You know, like that's pretty standard boilerplate. Like, you rise to fame, and so you start faking the stuff that gets you famous, or creating it, or whatever way it goes. In this situation, it was crimes and murders and gruesome stuff like that. So I need to get the juicy stuff, so let's make the juicy stuff happen. I mean, that's pretty standard. You know what I mean? And that's not like that insane. But I mean, it sounds like it's not like he was like, oh, just take that random civilian and go kill them. Like, it sounds like, you know, he was like Dextering it a little bit. He was a gang member that was taking out other gang members. I mean, not that that makes it any better, but like, it wasn't innocent civilians necessarily. So, I mean, I don't know if I would say that's like super insane. But yeah, a little crazy, sure. But like, that's pretty like, it's pretty fucking standard, man. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. That's pretty like run of the mill. That's what happens. However, this next story, I don't. He said something about some horrid acts or some shit like that. I don't know. we about to get in it. I don't know if I'm ready for it, but we about to find out.
In 2010, 18-year-old Renee Marsden was living in Sydney, Australia with her parents and her 3 siblings. Renee was a very outgoing person who had a big circle of friends, and she was also very close with her family, especially her mom, Teresa. Teresa had given birth to Renee when she was only 19 years old, and so...
Sorry. I thought that was where that sentence was just going to end. Teresa had given birth to Renee, and I was just going to be like, yeah, if it's her mom, that's generally how it happens. I was a little confused for a second. I was like, yeah, I would imagine she did. But when she was only 19, got it. When she was barely almost out of teenage years herself, got it. Okay, let's go back a little bit, because that one was just like, yeah, I bet she did. Spoiler alert, I bet a lot of moms have given birth to their kids. It doesn't happen all the time, you know, sometimes it's surrogate situations, but I'm sure it happens quite a bit. That was funny to me.
Her mom, Teresa. Teresa had given birth to Renee when she was only 19 years old. And so now that Renee was a young woman, because of their closeness in ages, the two had become very close friends instead of mother and daughter. Right. And so because of that dynamic, Renee found herself always going to her mother to tell her anything going on in her life. She was her confidant.
Yeah, right.
And that year, something major had disrupted Renee's Renee's life, and so naturally she went to her mom and she told her about it.
Right.
It would turn out Renee's boyfriend of nearly 2 years, who she was madly in love with,
Okay, 16,
well,
18.
she discovered he was cheating on her and didn't actually even care about her. He had sent these text messages that basically said as much. And so she confronted her boyfriend with these text messages,
Right.
and he denied ever sending them. He said, look, I've never cheated on you. I don't know where those came from. I promise I've been faithful to you this entire time. But Renee just wasn't buying it, and so she had felt forced to break up with him.
I mean, I can understand the breaking up with him part, but like something's going on. Okay, if like you're getting these messages from your boyfriend like, "Hey, I cheated on you," and blah 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 blah. I don't even care about you. I don't love you. And then you go to your boyfriend's like, "I didn't fucking send that." Like if he actually sent that, I don't think he'd later be like, "Nah, I didn't do that." You know what I mean? He'd be like, "I mean, yeah, that's all you should know," or something. You know what I mean? So like, someone might be sending you the truth through his phone, or it could just be some jealous girl got a hold of the phone, was like, "Hey, I've been cheating on you," you know what I mean? So I understand the feeling of needing to break up with him and whatnot, but like that's sus AAF, as the kids would say. So like I would look into that, but okay.
And so Renee naturally had turned to her mother for comfort and guidance, but Teresa, all she could really offer her daughter was, to remind her that time heals all wounds, and that
Was her boyfriend fucking her mom, and her mom sent those messages to her? Because that'd be one hell of a fucking twist.
certainly someday you will meet the right person for you. And amazingly, only a couple of weeks after this very painful breakup, Renee came home from work one day and she walked into the house and she was all smiles. And considering how unbelievably depressed she had been over the last couple of weeks, I mean, this really stood out. And so when her mom saw her smiling and radiating happiness, she rushed over to her and said, "What's gotten into you? Why are you in such a good mood?" And Renee would tell her that, "Actually, I've met another guy." And so Teresa said, Who? Who did you meet? Who is this person? And she would tell her mom that his name is Braden Spiteri. He was 23 years old, and he was a graduate of the King's School, which is a really prestigious boys' school in Sydney. And his father was this really successful business person who owned this big construction company that he was set to inherit later on. And so she was just raving about
Sounds a little unbelievable. Okay, so keep going.
how amazing this guy was. And Teresa was really happy. If nothing else, this was a very good distraction for her. And so she asked her daughter at some point, how'd you meet this guy? And Renee would tell her that Camilla had introduced them. Camilla Zaidan was Renee's best friend. They had met in high school.
Cool,
and Renee would explain to her mother that Braden was actually Camilla's ex-boyfriend, but they hadn't dated in a really long time, and there was no feelings between them. They were just friends at this point. And apparently, after Renee had this really painful breakup, Camilla had just felt bad for her, and so she had gone out and found the best possible match for Renee, which in her mind was this guy Braden. Teresa knew Camilla really well because she was always over the house, and she knew Teresa's intentions must have been good, but she's thinking to herself, this is bad news. You don't want to have best friends, one dating the ex-boyfriend.
I mean, generally, generally, yes, that is that is a good code to follow. Like even if they're like, "Oh no, we're totally over it," and I'll set you up with them and stuff. You don't trust that, man. Let's just say someone could be like, "Oh yeah, I don't even care about him," but then you see your best friend doing stuff with him, and you're just like, "You know what, fuck you, bitch. I still kind of have feelings." Like I could turn on a dime, man. Especially that teenage emotions and stuff. Like you don't trust that, man. Like it's just best not to get in that kind of feeling zone or what have you.
And of the other. It's just bad news waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And so Teresa couldn't even help herself, and she says to her daughter, "Do you really think it's a good idea to be dating Camilla's ex-boyfriend?" But Renee would tell her mom, "Look, Camilla was totally upfront with me. She just wants me to be happy. She thinks Braden is a good match for me. They don't have feelings anymore, not at all. She's totally in support." And so Teresa still very much had her doubts that this was a good idea. But she put those doubts aside, and instead she said, okay, well, can you show me a picture of Braden? Can I see what he looks like? And so Renee pulls out her phone and she finds a picture of Braden and she shows it to her mom. And right away, her mom is looking at this picture and seeing that Braden is a very handsome guy, big bright smile. But she sees in this picture, Camilla is very clearly laying on his.
I was hoping that was Renee for a second. Nah. I did not read the caption up at the top there. Bitch, no. No. Nah. Now, if that's the picture you have of him to be showing around, those feelings probably ain't. If they think they gone, they probably ain't gone, man. Like, let me tell you, it's bad news right here.
Shoulder like she is his girlfriend. And so again, Teresa's thinking to herself, this is not good. Someone is going to get hurt. But over the next couple of weeks and months, Renee and Braden texted each other all the time. I mean, Renee had her phone out basically 24/7 talking to Braden. The pair had made plans to meet up and see each other in person for the first time on several different occasions, but every single time they were set to go meet, one of them would have a conflict that would make it impossible to have this face-to-face meeting. And so before long, when they just could not get a meeting established, they kind of stopped trying to have face-to-face meetings. It was almost like they had built this really strong, flourishing relationship all via their phones, and it just was getting more and more awkward to actually go out and see each other in real life. It was just more comfortable doing it all on their phones. And so this digital-only relationship between Renee and Braden continued for almost a year.
What did you say this was, like 2010 or something like that? They have Skype around then? Wasn't Skype a thing? Maybe Skyping it.
Until January of 2012, when something horrible happened.
Okay, 2012. Skype was definitely around in 2012, right? Like, part of me wants to Google this, or you guys could have been Skyping or something. Did you not have like a computer or something? Was it too shaky? I mean, look at fucking. It's not good. Wiki. I'm gonna Wikipedia Skype, something that I never thought that I would do before. Skype. I just need to know when it started. That's the logo. Yeah, initial release was 2003. It had been out for years, man. They at least had Skype. You know what I mean? Like, why aren't they Skyping and shit? Maybe they are. Maybe that's part of the. I don't know. Same. Y'all not have Skype in Australia?
Braden was in a horrible motorcycle accident. He survived the accident, but his passenger, his best friend, this guy named Richie, who was riding right on the back of his motorcycle, he didn't survive. He was killed in the accident. And it was determined that Braden was driving recklessly. And so he was charged with manslaughter and convicted and sentenced to 2 years in prison. Even though Renee's mother, Teresa, was totally upset about this accident. I mean, she did understand someone had lost their life and now Braden was going to jail for 2 years. She understood the seriousness of this accident. But at the same time, there was a part of her, her motherly, protective side of her, that was kind of relieved for her daughter. She figured with Braden being out of contact for 2 years in prison, that their relationship would end and Renee could go pursue somebody else who was not an ex-boyfriend of a close friend and was someone that she could actually see in person and not just have to text with all the time. But surprisingly, after Braden was transferred to Goulburn Prison, which is where he'd be serving his 2-year sentence, it's located about 2 hours to the south of Sydney, his family smuggled a phone somehow into this jail, and he was able to continue texting with Renee.
No. How'd y'all find out about this accident? Was he actually sentenced to jail, or did he just tell you all this? Because, I mean, contraband can get smuggled into prison, especially maybe, I mean, I don't know how the rest of Australia is, but I hear that their, airport system's pretty lax. So, like, I could maybe see it being maybe kind of easy to smuggle something like that in. Like, obviously, they would smuggle it in so that he could talk to them as well. or something, but like something ain't right here, dog. Something fishy as a motherfucker right now, and I ain't buying it.
Renee. And so after he was incarcerated, they just picked up their relationship like nothing had changed. Now, Renee's family did not like this development, and they
No.
told her as much. They thought this was a bad idea, that this was the wrong path for her, but Renee didn't care. She was totally in love. And in fact, over the first couple of weeks that he was in Goulburn prison, their relationship only intensified. They actually agreed to get married as soon as he was released at the end of 2013.
Someone you never met. You going straight get married after he gets out of jail for driving recklessly. Girl, you dumb. I might have to spin a little bit. Might have to dust off that dumb motherfucker sticker stamp and just start stamping here in a second. It's been a little bit, but yeah, I might have to get that one fresh and ready for you.
And in fact, Renee had already begun making wedding preparations. She had gone on.
She is a very beautiful young lady. She can find anybody, man. You haven't even met this person face to face, and they in jail. Fuck you doing, Renee? I'm getting it nice, get nice and warm. It's ready to go. You about to get that stamp?
eBay and found this beautiful tiara she would wear on her wedding day. And
eBay. Days before Amazon. Get the eBay shit out of here.
Contracted a wedding photographer, and she had even contacted the Greek consulate to ask if it would be okay if Braden were allowed to enter their country, because they were planning to have their honeymoon in Greece, and Braden was going to be a convicted felon, and so she needed permission for him. But in August of 2013, just 2 months before Braden's expected release date, something changed. Renee's mother, Teresa, got a text message from Braden, something she had never gotten before,
What?
and it said,
"Sorry, you're sorry. Yo, you need to fix your daughter." Like, hold on, let me break down this. Because, like, obviously, you know, we talked about suicide and self-harm in the beginning, and so obviously it's going to take a turn like this. I didn't know it was going to happen now, and that Braden was going to send this to Teresa. First off, he started out the sentence with a period. Why are you planning on marrying this guy? First off, with that grammar itself, like, come on. That alone is like, nah, next. But whatever. Anyway, sort your daughter out, threatening to kill herself. First off, I know it's texting, so, you know, like, grammar and language and stuff is not the most important here. But, like, you're missing the big chunk of she is threatening to kill herself. Why would you marry this man? It's right here. It's ready for you. I want to stamp it already, just by his language in general. But her response to this, however, is concerning to me. Please explain to me why a young woman would want to kill herself. Teresa, as a person who has been around a lot of high schoolers and middle schoolers, I mean, obviously she's graduated by this point. Her daughter's graduated by this point, but being around a lot of teenage women, that's not hard to believe. Being a teenager is not easy. Alright, so that's a very easily answered question. What you should be asking him instead, who's just never texted you before and all of a sudden saying, hey, you need to go sort out your fucking daughter, she's trying to kill herself. What you need to ask, that should say, please explain to me why she's threatening to kill herself. And what did you do to make that happen or something? That should be the text that you should be sending them. Like, not why would a young woman want to kill herself? Have you been in society? I'm sure Australian society is a little bit different than like the U.S. and whatnot, or, you know, maybe other places that have higher suicide rates, what have you. Like, I think Japan has a pretty high one as well. But like, maybe Australia's a little bit more on the lax and the chill. But like, there's a lot of reasons, man. None of them smart, good, or rational, but there's a lot. You know, so I mean, like, what kind of fucking question is that? But I like just like, shit, ask yourself, man. I told you to sort her out, not ask me questions about philosophy. Why would a woman want to kill herself? Like, I didn't ask for philosophy. I said, go talk to your daughter. Go ask her yourself, man. Like, mom might get stamped too.
You need to check on your daughter. She's talking about killing herself. And so Teresa is totally taken aback by this message, and she goes right into Renee's bedroom where she is sitting on her bed, and her mother sits down next to her and says, honey, are you okay? You know, what's going on? And Renee would look up at her mom and say, yeah, you know, I'm fine. What's going on with you? And then Teresa would hold out the phone and show her the text message from Raven. And as soon as Renee saw it, she kind of sighed and looked at her mom and said, I'm not going to hurt myself. We just broke up. Our relationship is over. Teresa knew this was going to be an extremely hard stretch of time for her daughter.
Well, good. You shouldn't be with him. And it could just be the initial, like, oh, I'm going to kill myself if you leave me, that people say they'll often mean. So, I doubt that's going to be it because we're in a Mr. Ballen story. But, let's hope it's just that.
With another painful breakup here. But at the same time, Teresa thought to herself, this is probably for the best.
Yeah, really
relationship just had bad news written all over it from the start, and so now she can begin to heal and move forward with her life.
Not if they start jumping back and forth and whatnot.
So Teresa and Renee would sit in the room for a while just chatting on the bed, and then eventually Renee would tell her mom that her plans that night were to go out with her friends and cut loose and kind of just forget about this whole thing. And so Teresa...
After there's a chance of her saying threatening to kill herself, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable with that being the mom, you know what I'm saying?
Sat in her bedroom on her bed as her daughter stood in front of the mirror and got ready. And then once Renee was ready, she and her mom hugged and kissed. And then Renee told her mom she'd be back soon, and then she left the house. A few hours later, Teresa received a text message from her daughter, and it started with, Mom, I love you so much.
I told you. I told you you don't let her go out. After she said that, I know you were talking for a while and she seemed base level, she seemed fine. If you get a message saying she's threatening to kill herself, she's like, oh, don't worry, I'm going out tonight to cut loose and stuff. She probably very much literally means cut loose. Like, he just like, I don't know about that, hon. I kind of need to monitor you now. I don't know if he's going to read this or not. We'll see.
So much, and I'm sorry for the pain I'm about to cause you. You can still talk to me, though. Just...
I'll be okay. I'll still be around. If you're here and be around when you need to talk to me, just call my name and I'll be there. Oh, no. That's fucked up. That's a fucked up thing to say. Oh, my God. You're the most amazing person and mother ever and my very best friend. I wasn't happy, and I need you to understand that it's okay. Don't let this ruin everyone else you need to take care of, okay? I need you to be strong for me. Oh my God. As a parent, not that I'm not a parent, but just saying, anyone who is a parent, that is like the most horrifying message you could ever receive from your child. Like that's one of those things you read that and your whole body just goes into like full on panic mode. Like that. Oof. Oh, it's gonna get dark.
Call out my name and I'll be there. Teresa read this message and didn't really know what to make of it.
You don't know what to make of it, Teresa? Oh, you don't know what to make of it, Teresa?
She knew her daughter was almost certainly very upset about this breakup, but she didn't really understand the context of this message, and so she called her daughter. She didn't pick up, so she called her again, and after that second time her daughter didn't answer, she sent her a text message that just said, please call me back. But she sat there kind of waiting for her daughter's call, but...
you call the cops, man. You need to find my daughter, and now.
But it never came. And so Teresa, starting to feel a little bit worried about her daughter...
Starting to feel a little bit. Teresa, a little bit. Teresa, I thought Renee was getting the stamp. I think you about to get the stamp, girl.
Called Camilla, and she asked her, hey, have you talked to Renee tonight? Because I can't get in touch with her. And Camilla would tell Teresa that actually, yeah, I just got a very strange text message from her that just said, I love you, I'm sorry.
Teresa, warning signs are not just flashing through your brain right now. That's saying goodbye, man. Forever. She about to do that. She about to do it. Come on.
And so at this point, the two women understood that there could be something very wrong.
Let me open up the page here. Teresa, you get it. You today, Teresa, you get the dumb motherfucker stamp. The Cage special dumb motherfucker stamp. You fucking dumb. Oh, like I understand that I get the context of it's a Mr. Ballen story and I've saw all the warnings before. I get that. But even if I was just, it might be also because I'm in this field. I've dealt with many past relationships like this, not nearly to this level. Thankfully, I've been lucky, and that I have just been around an environment where I know what these words mean. I know what happens when people say this stuff. I see teenagers that are not doing okay all the time. That could be why. But like, anyone should be able to read that and understand what that means. Like anyone. You probably don't even have to graduate from a high school or even a middle school to understand what the fuck that means. Teresa. Dumb motherfucker. Alright, let's go.
With Renee, and so they met up and drove all around Sydney, going to all the places that Renee was known to go to. But after several hours of looking and not hearing back from Renee, they really didn't know what to do.
Go to the police. Start a search, because she's probably ain't gonna find her till it's too late now. You know what I mean? Like, that's the sad reality of that.
And so the two women drove back to Teresa's house, so Renee's house, and they went inside and they sat down. And at that point, Teresa's husband and the rest of Renee's siblings, they were all there, and everyone's just kind of sitting around wondering what to do next, when around 9:30 at night, they heard a knock on the door. And it was the police coming to inform them that they had found Renee's car parked in an area that it shouldn't have been, but Renee wasn't there. And so they were coming to ask if they knew where she was and why her car might be out there. And so at this point, the family is totally terrified. They
Oh, good. That took you long enough.
tell the police about these strange text messages, and then before long, the parents just rush outside, they hop in their cars, and they drive out to where their daughter's car is. And where Renee's car was parked was in an area called The Gap.
I mean, I hope, Teresa, you can look at this view and know exactly what that means, right? Like, you ain't that dumb, right? Because, like, I'm looking at this from those text messages I received, from everything I just received, unless there's some kind of crazy twist in here. I know what that means. Do you know what that means, Teresa? Dumb motherfucker.
It basically was this sheer cliff overlooking the ocean. The parents got out
Instantly dead. Like,
searched their daughter's car, but there was
slapped,
no sign
drowned.
of where she had gone based on the car. And so they began running up and down the cliffs. There was a sidewalk that kind of ran parallel to the...
It's probably tragic as hell, but that is a very beautiful walk area and view. Like, just thinking, like, you know, traveling up here and whatnot. Not nice little path and stuff. Very beautiful. I'm sure it's not going to be... No, not going to be as appreciated by the family involved.
the edge of the cliff, and they're running up and down hoping they're going to find their daughter, but there's no sign of her. And then at some point, Teresa climbed up to one of the highest points of the cliff, and when she got up there, she found her daughter's black flat shoes, and they were placed neatly together on the ground right in front of the fence that was there to prevent people from getting too close to the edge of the cliff. But despite an extensive search that night, they couldn't find any sign of Renee. She was nowhere to be found. However, the police would discover the following day that there was actually a camera that was looking at that section
Oh, don't tell me they have that on video.
of the cliffs. And so they reviewed this footage and they found Renee. They saw what happened to her. And in this camera footage, you see Renee walking up the trail in the middle of the night, and she stops and she takes off her shoes and she puts them down, and then she hops over that fence. Now, the fence was not right up against the very edge of the cliff. It was set back maybe 3 or 4 feet. And so she hops over the fence, and then she steps very carefully to the edge of the cliff, and she kind of peeks over the edge and then looks visibly terrified, and she moves backwards a few steps until her back is pressed up against the fence. And then she pulls out her phone and she sends 3 text messages.
happened immediately after. Yeah.
One was to her mother, which is the text about how she loved her and she was sorry for the pain she was going to cause her. And then the other two text messages were to Camilla and also to Braden. However, to this day, we don't actually know what either of those text messages said.
How do we not have information about what those said? It's kind of weird.
And then after sending these 3 text messages, Renee takes her phone and she throws it off the cliff into the water. And then she sat down and began kind of shimmying herself forward towards the edge. Now, the camera did not actually pick her up falling off the cliff, but it's assumed when she went out of frame that she had fallen off the cliff to her death. Her body would never be recovered. Renee's death was ruled a suicide. However, her family, in addition to being totally devastated by this horrible loss, they felt totally confused. They had no idea why this had happened, but they were certain it had to have something to do with this recent breakup with Braden Spiteri.
Sure.
And so they tried to get in touch with Braden, but he wasn't getting back in touch with them. And so the family contacted the police.
I mean, he might not be in jail, as I told you. I called it that, by the way. If he's in jail, you can go get a hold of him. Pretty easily. He ain't going nowhere, but I have a sinking suspicion he's not actually in jail.
And said, can you reach out to the prison where he is and set up a meeting? And so the police obliged them and they called Goulburn Prison. And when they spoke to the prison, they said, who?
He's never been there.
Braden who? Yeah, we don't have a Braden Spiteri here. We never have.
I thought that I was going to make fun of the name being very Italian when I first heard it, but that also sounds like a fake last name.
And the reason was, Braden Spiteri wasn't real. Renee's friend, Camilla, had made him up. He was a fictitious person. That picture of Braden Spiteri where Camilla is laying on his shoulder, that was just some random person she had met in a club.
Yeah, there's the twist. What I tell you. Why would he have a phone in prison? Who smuggles their child a phone in prison? And how did they find out about this thing? Because probably the prison thing, it probably never happened. The accident probably never happened. So did they actually see it on the news? That's what I was saying. That's what I was thinking. Or did they hear it straight from him? Who is, my guess, her. I mean, your boy called it, did he not? I did not call that it was her friend, but if I would have known the Braden dude was fake, that probably would. Okay.
Camilla had always been very possessive.
Did Camilla tell her that it wasn't that? Oh, he's not real. It was me the whole time. And then she killed herself. Did she try to break it off with her? And then, right, got it.
Of Renee ever since they had met in high school, and at some point she had just decided that she wanted even more control over Renee. And so the first thing she did is she convinced Renee that her earlier boyfriend, the one she'd been dating for 2 years before Braden, she convinced Renee that he had been cheating on her the whole time, he was unfaithful.
What I tell you, man? That's sus as fuck. when your boyfriend's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I didn't tell you that. Like, dog. What I tell ya, I called the suspicious nature of this every step of the fucking way. I just didn't link it back to her friend, which I probably should have, but still.
They didn't love her, and then she had created those text messages and given them to Renee and convinced Renee that that was something he had said, and before long, Renee totally believed it. She approached her boyfriend, he denied it, but Camilla the whole time is telling Renee, he's lying to you, he's been doing this whole time, I know he's a bad guy, and so Renee had listened to her best friend, and she had severed that relationship. And then almost
should have been listening to your mom.
Immediately after that, Camilla
Who's a dumb motherfucker, but you still should listen to him.
swoops in to the rescue and connects Renee with this Braden guy, Camilla's supposed ex-boyfriend, who really was just Camilla on the other side of the phone. And for nearly 2 years, Camilla kept this charade.
So, like, I understood the catfishing element from them not being able to meet up. But, like, since both of them had issues, like, Renee and his Braden character, who were both having issues, I was just like, oh, okay, maybe it was just, oh, it just, fate never seems to get us there together or whatnot, at the same place, same time, or whatever. So I thought maybe it's not catfishing, but usually when that happens, it's like catfishing situations. But Renee was also having a hard time on her end keeping to the date, so I thought maybe not. That's why they never met in person, and why they never Skyped. Don't you Skype that shit, dog?
Up. And Renee completely believed this was a real person, that Braden was her boyfriend. She loved him. And eventually, in June of 2013, so 2 months before Renee died, she confided in Braden, aka Camilla, that her friend Camilla was toxic and mean and controlling. And
oh, shit. And did she tell her to kill herself? Because she heard some shit she didn't like, or is that why they broke it off? So she decided to kill herself. Oh no! Oh, that's funny, but that's fucked.
she didn't want to be her friend anymore.
Oh.
And so Camilla, she's reading this and she's furious. And so
Of
she
course.
decides the only way to get revenge on Renee and regain control of her is to have Braden break up with her. And so 2 months later, on August 5th, 2013, so on the day that Renee died, she was out to lunch at around 1 p.m. with a coworker when she gets a text message from Braden that just kind of comes out of the blue, and it says, "I need a break from you." Now, this is around the time that they're planning their wedding. And so Renee is totally heartbroken, and she's trying to get in touch with him and call him. He's not picking up. And then fast forward to about 2:45 p.m. that afternoon, we know Renee called Goulburn Prison. It was the first time she had done that. Now, we don't know who she spoke to or what they actually talked about, but it's nearly guaranteed that she learned Braden Spiteri was not being held there. And so almost certainly she would have realized that Braden is either not real, or Braden had been lying to her in such a huge way that the relationship could never work. And so no matter what, this chapter of her life was totally over. And so later that day, when she was sitting on her bed in her bedroom and her mom came in and she asked her how she was doing, it's very likely that Renee was devastated. She was crushed and probably kind of embarrassed about how badly she had just...
Yeah. But she was acting completely, well, normal-ish. Sad, but normal-ish. And that's the most dangerous moment, is when someone who should be completely, emotionally devastated and unable to move because there's so much emotional pain, but they're just smiling oh no, it's okay, I'm fine. That's when they're the most dangerous to themselves. That's when you gotta be I don't know about this. I don't think so. So yeah, her mom in no way, shape, or form should have been yeah, no, go out with your friends, have fun. No, I know you can't really be it would probably be bad and or worse for you to be I know, hon, I don't trust you by yourself. I gotta go with you. But yeah, how are you supposed to know as a parent in that situation? I had red flags going, just you don't no, you don't no, you don't let her just go out after you get that text message. You don't just let her go out. You know what I mean? No. You watching that bitch. You following her. You be you ain't going out. You putting her on suicide watch, man. Just Fuck. Okay.
been duped by this Braden person, whoever that was. And so even though normally Renee would tell her mother everything, her mother was her confidant, she loved her mother. It was like she just couldn't bring herself to discuss what was happening to her. It was just so enormous. It was so overwhelming that she hid it from her mother. And instead, she just got dressed up, said goodbye to her mom, and then she headed out to the cliffs. No charges were ever brought against Camilla because catfishing, which is exactly what she was doing.
Right, that's what he was saying in the beginning, is technically not illegal. And she didn't kill her. It was suicide. Like, she may have been the cause of the suicide, but just like in your relationship with someone, you break up with them, they're like, well, I'm gonna kill myself if you break up with me. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna break up with you. Like, I don't want to be with you, and they kill themselves. You're not responsible for that. So it's the same thing. It's technically they killed themselves because you lied to them, but like, lying's not illegal, and you didn't tell them to kill themselves. You didn't help them kill themselves. You didn't. So like, yeah, it's not illegal. It's morally reprehensible and disgusting, but not illegal. That is, wow, that's pretty fucked. Huh. That one's just fascinating. It's sad as fuck, but that's fascinating because it's like, yeah, no, technically that's not illegal. She didn't do. I mean, she did all things morally and just like as a society wrong, but not wrong in the eyes of the law. Technically, she didn't do anything wrong. That's weird because I mean, in the end, you got to be strong enough not to kill yourself just because something bad happens to you. Like, obviously, it's like some major, like you feel like your whole world just crumbled and like everything you're planning, your whole entire future in your life or whatever is destroyed. Like, if that was the case, so many people that get a divorce would kill themselves. Like, you kind of have to be have a little bit stronger willpower than that, you know. And I don't know, like, you can maybe blame that on society or, you know, or what have you, or I don't think you can blame the parents on that one because like it seemed like they were really close and you know that her mother was very supportive and whatnot. So I mean, I don't know. I feel like I just have like, kids that were born at a younger age have like a stronger willpower, man. Like you know these kids these days just like, oh, I didn't get the job I wanted, and they just kill themselves or something. Or I'm gonna kill my parents. They seem so fragile, like emotionally these days, man. I swear. Because like I don't know, me personally, I was hardened in the World of Warcraft Battleground chat back in the day. If any of y'all played Alterac Valley way back in the original Warcraft days, you were subject to some of the harshest, cruelest shit that people could ever say to you ever, and you just like whatever and shrugged it off. Like fucking steel right here. you can't penetrate this. I don't give a fuck what you think about me, because I was hardened by World of Warcraft. I feel like everyone they should have experienced that in their life. I mean, a little true, but like you know, a little bit of a silliness here, but like. I mean, all the like people, you know, sometimes I see people reacting to certain things, and they just going off these kids like, you know, oh, you lost a job, so you decided to kill someone. Like, what the, you know, like, y'all need to like fucking get strong. And it's usually the older people saying this, you know what I mean? It's just like, what's wrong with the teens these days, man? The last like 10, 20 years, it's just like life goes on, man. Like. Oh, someone was lying to me about a relationship and like I feel so foolish and I was gonna get married to this person. Like, yeah, that's gonna emotionally cripple you. I mean, I've had like crazy life altering things, like the person I got married to and I thought I was gonna spend the rest of my life with, all of a sudden's like, yeah, I feel differently and just left. Like, yeah, better believe I was curled up in bed. All I could do was watch stuff, whatever I could on YouTube and stuff, just to try to feel some form of happiness for at least a good 3 or 4 days straight. Yeah, barely eaten over maybe one thing in like 48 hours. Sure, it happens. But guess what? Life goes the fuck on. It gets better. Like, I'm super happy now. Like, I probably would be miserable if I was married to that crazy motherfucker. So, dude, life goes on, man. Suck it the fuck up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, I get it, and the whole situation's so incredibly sad, and like, I was being torn up listening to, just imagining the fear of getting those text messages, and finally, for some reason, after a while, Teresa realizing what they meant. But just the imagery of seeing a video of her texting that and then knowing that it's over, throwing her phone and then going over herself is just so fucking heartbreaking. But the reason it's happening is just kind of like, man, guys, life's cruel. Life is hard. You got to be tougher than that. Like, you really got to be tougher than that. That's a lot to handle, but like, you still have your love support system of your family. You're still financially stable. You're not starving or in poverty. Like you gotta be tougher than that. Like, life's much harder than that situation you just went through. It's gonna get worse. Trust me. Before trust me, it'll get better as well. But it's gonna get worse than that. Like, life's gonna throw some worse shit at you than that. Like, you gotta be tougher, or life's gonna swallow you alive. And that's what happened. Like, I don't know. Like, a part of me wants to, be like, oh, I feel so bad for this person. But at the other end, it's just like, you gotta be tough. You gotta get thicker skin than that, man. Like, come on. Like, these snowflakes these days, man. Like, a tiny fraction, they just shatter. Like, I swear. I'm very sorry for the family members. I had to go through that. That is an absolutely tragic event that no one ever wants to have to experience from their child. That and being killed by your child, but at least that one you don't have to live with the aftermath, technically.
Which is using a fictitious online persona to lure people into relationships. Well, that's not considered a crime in Australia. And Camilla, despite...
I think anywhere, I don't think that's considered a crime, right? Is that illegal in the U.S.? Depending on what you do with that. Well, maybe. I don't know. I'll look that up.
Being pressed by the police and Renee's family, has never taken responsibility for this and has never apologized. So that's going to do it, guys. If you got something out of today's episode and you
you whore,
haven't done this already.
Hold on. After we looked up Skype, I gotta look up, is catfishing illegal? Catfishing illegal. First thing that popped up. Catfishing and money illegal, yes. Representing yourself differently online than in real life isn't illegal. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of resources when the person you're talking to turns out to be a catfish. However, there are situations where catfishing can lead to legal issues, even criminal charges. Right. Like the second one in there, catfishing money or something like that, getting you to do certain things based off catfishing and whatnot. Eventually, it could lead into something that is illegal, but catfishing itself is not illegal. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't know if she didn't confess or apologize or anything, because that could have led to serious charges and whatnot. But like, the fact that she fucked up that bad, being a manipulating, controlling monster, and didn't even apologize for what she caused, like, the karma and redemption that person will hopefully face in their life is going to be extremely brutal, based off of that alone. So that's gonna do it for us here today, guys. Like, again, I promised you that I probably would have some kind of angle or view on this that would probably be triggering and you probably wouldn't be happy with. Hopefully you didn't skip the beginning, because I warned you. So like, the only person you can really get mad at this point is yourself. Definitely not me. Come on. No, I mean, I don't know. It's like, trust me, I understand how tragic of a situation that is, and like, would be, I would be absolutely devastated if I had a child, love that child, raise that child for 20 plus years, and was like absolutely, just like loved my kid, and then they killed themselves. I would be absolutely devastated. 100%. Like, there's no recovery from that. That takes forever just to become okay. But I can tell you, I wouldn't kill myself because of that. Because life's gonna throw shit at that, throw shit at you that's tough like that, and you gotta be stronger, man. Like you gotta be strong, otherwise you're doomed. You know what I mean? Like life's fucking tough, man. It's sad but true. So sorry if my opinions are unpopular. They usually are. But like it's sad truth, but it's the truth. So thank you so much for joining me here today. That was a crazy twist on that story. And I will see you in the next Mr. Ballen adventure.